The trail of blood carved through the virgin snow, like a confession written in scarlet. Dr. Elena Rossi squinted through the howling Montana blizzard. Her headlights caught something that shouldn't exist. Movement, where death should reign. 19 below zero. A historic storm. Everything that could die would die. Except her. The German shepherd lay collapsed in a snowdrift, her swollen belly heaving with labored breaths, ice crystals forming on her muzzle with each exhale. But it wasn't the pregnant dog fighting death that made Elena's hands tremble as she knelt in the snow. It was what Luna clutched against her chest, with desperate paws, a faded purple backpack, small enough for a child, embroidered with dragonflies, and a name that made Elena's heart skip a beat. Sophie. Elena reached for the bag. Luna's eyes snapped open. From her throat came a growl, a sound that spoke of promises kept in darkness, of guardianship that ascended death itself. Why would a dying dog protect a child's bag over her own life? Elena had learned that grief carved spaces in people, spaces that never quite filled back in. 5 years ago, a drunk driver had taken her 8-year-old son, Leo, leaving Elena with a veterinary practice that felt more like penance than purpose. At 35, she lived alone above her clinic, on the outskirts of Helena, where the town thinned into ranch land, and people minded their own business. The February storm of 2024 had transformed this familiar landscape into something alien. Power lines down, roads impassable, Montana breaking under the weight of ice it was never meant to bear. Luna was 5 years old, according to the rabies tag. Elena would later find a German shepherd who should have been in her prime, now reduced to bones and scars beneath matted fur. 7 deep gashes marked her back. Deliberate. Methodical. The kind of wounds that spoke of human cruelty, rather than accident. Her pregnancy was advanced, maybe days from delivery. And Elena wondered what kind of monster would abandon a pregnant dog in the worst storm in history. 3 miles from Elena's clinic, Mark Sullivan's house stood like a monument to decay. Once a skilled carpenter who'd built half the barns in town. Mark hadn't worked since February 14th, 3 years ago, the day his 7-year-old daughter, Sophie, vanished into another winter storm. The police had found her purple backpack near the river, but never her body. The search lasted 72 hours before they called it off. Sophie would be 10 now, if miracles existed. Instead, Mark existed in a haze of whiskey and blame. His only companion? The dog he'd once bought for Sophie. The dog who'd failed to bring his baby home. Mrs. Higgins, known as Betty to everyone in town, had watched it all unfold from her kitchen window. At 72, she'd outlived a husband, 2 sons, and more secrets than any person should carry. She knew things about that night 3 years ago. Things about footprints in the snow, about travelers passing through, about a child's cry she'd heard carried on the wind. But Betty understood that some truths needed ripening, like fruit on a vine. Pick them too early, and they'd poison everyone who tasted them. The storm outside Elena's clinic howled with unusual fury, as if nature itself was preparing to unveil what had been buried in 3 years of silence and snow. Elena had been driving back from an emergency call. Old Miller's horse had colic, though it hadn't survived the night, when her headlights caught the blood. Fresh red against white, impossible to miss, even through the sideways falling snow. She'd pulled over against her better judgment. The wind hit her face like shattered glass when she opened the door. She had to shield her eyes to follow the trail. Luna lay there like a question mark, curled against death, her body wrapped around that purple backpack, as if it contained the world's last warmth. Elena's veterinary training kicked in immediately. The dog's breathing was shallow, rapid, maybe 30 respirations per minute. Hypothermia. Shock. Advanced pregnancy. The math was simple and cruel. Luna had maybe an hour left, if Elena didn't move fast. "Hey, girl," Elena whispered, reaching out slowly. Luna's eyes opened, amber brown, clouded with pain, but sharp with purpose. When Elena's hand moved toward the bag, Luna bared her teeth, a growl rumbling from somewhere deeper than her throat. It was the sound of a promise being kept. Elena retreated, tried another approach. She wrapped her coat around Luna's body, avoiding the bag entirely. The dog allowed this, even seemed grateful, but her paws never loosened their grip on those faded straps. Getting Luna into the truck took 20 minutes. Elena didn't have 20 minutes. The dog weighed maybe 60 pounds. Should have been 80. And every movement brought a whimper that Elena felt in her bones. Back at the clinic, Elena worked with practiced efficiency: IV fluids, warming blankets, antibiotics. The ultrasound showed at least 5 puppies, maybe more. Hearts still beating, but weak. Luna needed an emergency C-section, but she wouldn't release the bag, even as the sedatives took hold. Elena had seen dogs cling to toys before, but this was different. This was devotion that transcended consciousness. As Elena shaved Luna's belly for surgery, she cataloged the damage. Those 7 scars on her back were methodical, made by a belt, probably, or a stick. Old injuries beneath broken ribs that had healed wrong. A shoulder that had been dislocated. This dog had been someone's punching bag for years, yet. When Elena's assistant, Ben, tried to move the backpack just 6 inches to make room for the surgical equipment, Luna's eyes snapped open. Despite the sedation, her jaw clamping down on Ben's wrist, not hard enough to break skin, but firm enough to communicate. The bag stays. They performed the surgery with the backpack pressed against Luna's side. It was past midnight when Luna finally slept deeply enough for Elena to examine the bag properly. The clinic was quiet, except for the storm's fury outside and the soft beeping of monitors. Elena unzipped it carefully, feeling like a trespasser in someone else's tragedy. Inside was a child's universe, compressed and preserved. A cloth doll, handmade with blue yarn hair, and a dress made from what looked like curtain fabric. One button eye was missing. There was a photograph, water-damaged and torn, showing partial faces, a child's smile, the edge of a dog's muzzle, a small knitted scarf, teal and white, with dropped stitches that spoke of a beginner's enthusiasm, and at the bottom, folded into a square no bigger than a playing card, a piece of notebook paper. Elena unfolded it under the surgical light. A child's handwriting, careful and round. "Luna, keep me safe until I come back. You promised you would never leave me. I love you more than all the stars. Sophie." Elena sat back, the paper trembling in her hands. Sophie Sullivan, the girl who'd vanished 3 years ago. The girl whose father lived 3 miles away, in a house that reeked of whiskey and regret. This wasn't just a dog with a bag. This was a guardian carrying out a mission that had lasted longer than anyone could have imagined. Luna whimpered in her sleep, her paws twitching, reaching for something that wasn't there. "Sophie," she seemed to whisper, though dogs couldn't speak. Over and over, a name that had become a prayer, a promise, a penance. Elena pulled up a chair beside Luna's recovery cage, the purple backpack placed where the dog could see it when she woke. Outside, the storm intensified, power lines groaning under the weight of ice. The clinic's generator hummed to life as the main power failed. In the darkness, punctuated only by emergency lighting and monitor glow. Elena understood she'd stumbled into something that transcended a simple rescue. This was about promises that survived abandonment, about loyalty that endured abuse, about love that even death couldn't diminish. The real question wasn't why Luna protected the bag. It was what had happened to the little girl who'd asked her to. 7 days had passed since Elena pulled Luna from the snow, and the storm had only grown worse. Montana was breaking under the weight of ice it was never built to handle. Power had been out for 3 days straight, and Elena's generator sputtered on its last reserves of fuel. She'd moved her surgical recovery area to the warmest room, clustering Luna with 2 other animals she was boarding, refugees from the storm. Luna had healed remarkably fast, though she still moved with the careful deliberation of someone who'd learned that sudden movements brought pain. She'd begun arranging blankets in a specific pattern, always with the purple backpack at the center, like some ancient ritual of motherhood she couldn't quite remember, but couldn't forget. Elena had watched German shepherds prepare for birth before, but this was different. This was architectural, deliberate, almost desperate. The pounding on the clinic door came at 2 in the afternoon. Though the dark sky made it feel like midnight, Elena knew who it was before she opened it. She could smell the whiskey through the door, could hear the slurred cursing that preceded Mark Sullivan wherever he went these days. "Where's my goddamn dog?" Mark stood in the doorway, swaying slightly, his carpenter's frame still imposing despite 3 years of self-destruction. Ice crystals clung to his beard, and his eyes were bloodshot maps of regret. "I know you have her. Ben told me at the store. Mr. Sullivan, you need to leave." Elena kept her voice steady, professional, though her hand moved to her phone. "Luna is recovering from major surgery. She was nearly dead when I found her." "Luna." Mark laughed, but it came out like breaking glass. "That what you're calling her? Her name's Dog. Has been for 3 years. Just Dog." He pushed past Elena, stumbling into the clinic. The smell of him, whiskey, cigarettes, unwashed clothes, filled the small space. From the recovery room came a sound Elena had never heard Luna make, a keen of pure terror that raised every hair on her arms. Mark heard it too, and something flickered across his face. Satisfaction, guilt, both. "She knows Daddy's here," Mark slurred, moving toward the sound. Elena stepped in front of him. "She's terrified of you. What did you do to her?" "What did I do?" Mark's face twisted. "What did she do? That's the question. 3 years ago. My little girl, my Sophie." His voice cracked on the name. "Luna was supposed to protect her. That's why we got her. To keep Sophie safe. And where was she when my baby needed her? Where was she?" Luna's keening grew louder, and Elena could hear her thrashing in her cage, probably tearing her stitches. "Mr. Sullivan, you need to leave now, or I'm calling the sheriff." "The sheriff?" Mark laughed again. "You think anybody's coming in this storm? You think anybody gives a damn about a drunk and his dog?" He took another step forward, and Elena saw his fists clench. "That dog let my daughter die. 7 years old. 7. He held up his hands, counting on his fingers with drunk precision. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 years I had her. 7 years she was my whole world. And that dog." The door burst open again, bringing a swirl of snow, and Mrs. Betty Higgins, all 4'11" of her, wrapped in a coat that had probably been her husband's. At 72. Betty moved with the purposeful energy of someone who'd outlived too much to be afraid of anything. "Mark Sullivan," she said, and somehow his full name in her mouth sounded like a leash snapping tight. "You're done here." Mark turned, swaying. "Betty, what are you?" She walked right up to him, had to crane her neck to look him in the eye, and whispered something Elena couldn't hear. The color drained from Mark's face. He looked like he'd been slapped by God himself. "You don't know," he said weakly. "You weren't there." "I know more than you think," Betty replied. "And if you don't leave right now, if you don't get yourself home and sober up, I'll tell everyone what I know, including what really happened that night, including why the search team gave up on the riverbank, including what you did when Luna tried to show them." Mark stumbled backward, his eyes wide with something beyond drunk. Real. Sobering. Fear. "You can't know that." "Can't I?" Betty's voice was still wrapped in grandmotherly sweetness. "Get out, Mark. Some truths need their time, and yours isn't now." He left without another word. Crashing through the door into the storm, Elena could hear his truck engine struggle to turn over, then catch, then fade into the white noise of wind. "What did you tell him?" Elena asked. "What really happened that night?" Betty looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. "Some stories ain't mine to tell, dear. Not yet. That dog in there, she's got her reasons for holding on to that bag. Mark's got his reasons for drinking. And somewhere out there, there's a truth waiting to be found. But not today." She patted Elena's arm. "You just keep that dog safe, dog. Keep them puppies safe. The rest will come when it's meant to." She left as suddenly as she'd arrived, leaving Elena with more questions than answers, in the recovery room. Luna had calmed, but the incident had changed something. She'd pulled the purple backpack underneath her body, was lying on it now like a hen on an egg. She wouldn't eat unless Elena placed the food where she could see the bag while eating. At night, she whimpered and pawed at it, arranging and rearranging it in her nest. Elena did the math. Luna had been pregnant for probably 60 days. German Shepherd gestation was 63. 3 more days, maybe less given the stress. She watched Luna nose the backpack into position for the 100th time, her movements becoming more frantic as her body prepared for birth. "What are you trying to tell me?" Elena whispered, sitting beside the cage. Luna looked at her with those amber eyes, then deliberately pushed the bag toward the cage door, not surrendering it, but showing it, like evidence in a case only she understood. Elena noticed something she'd missed before. The backpack wasn't just faded, it had been repaired, multiple times. Clumsy stitches held tears together. A strap had been retied where it had broken. This bag had been maintained, treasured, protected, through 3 years of hell. Luna had kept her promise, whatever that promise truly meant, whatever had really happened the night Sophie disappeared. Luna had never let go. Outside, the storm grew worse. The radio reported 12 dead across the state, thousands without power, roads that wouldn't be clear for weeks, and in a small veterinary clinic, a dog prepared to give birth while clutching the last remnant of a child who'd asked her to keep her safe. Elena couldn't shake Betty's words. Some truths need their time. Time for what? Time for whom? And what truth could be so terrible that even now, 3 years later, it still had the power to drain the color from Mark Sullivan's face? The purple backpack seemed to pulse with secrets in the dim emergency lighting, and Luna curled tighter around it, as if she could somehow protect the past from the present. Promise from reality, love from loss. Elena couldn't let it go. After Betty's cryptic visit and Mark's drunken intrusion, she needed to understand what had happened to Sophie Sullivan. The storm had trapped everyone indoors anyway. Roads closed, internet down, nothing but time and questions. She'd found an old laptop in her office with downloaded newspaper archives from the county library's digitization project, something she'd helped fund but never used. The Helena Independent Record. February 15th, 2021. Local girl, 7, presumed dead in ice storm. The headline was stark, matter-of-fact, the way newspapers report tragedies that have become statistics. Sophie Marie Sullivan, second grader at Valley Elementary, had gone missing during the unexpected ice storm that hit Montana on February 14th. Last seen playing with family dog in backyard. Search called off after 72 hours due to dangerous conditions. No body recovered. Elena read deeper. The search had involved 40 volunteers, 2 helicopters, heat-sensing equipment. They'd focused on Peterson River, where Sophie's backpack had been found, snagged on a branch. The water had been moving fast with snowmelt. Ice cold. Impossible for a child to survive. Mark Sullivan was quoted, "She's gone. My baby's gone. The dog came back without her. That's all I need to know." But there was something odd in the sheriff's report. Buried in the last paragraph, the family dog repeatedly attempted to lead searchers away from the river toward the northern woods. This behavior was dismissed as trauma response. Elena looked at Luna, sleeping fitfully in her cage, paws still wrapped around the backpack. "You tried to tell them, didn't you? You knew she wasn't in the river." The next few hours became an investigation. Elena bundled up and made her way through the storm to the library, abandoned but unlocked. The way small towns leave things. The physical newspaper archives were still there, yellowing and dusty. She found more details the digital version had trimmed. Photos of the search. Mark. 3 years younger. Clean-shaven. Desperate but sober. Luna. Younger. Healthier. Straining against her leash, trying to pull rescuers in a specific direction. There was a photo that made Elena's hands shake. Sophie Sullivan. School portrait. Gap-toothed smile. Wearing a teal sweater that matched the scarf in the backpack. But it was the smaller photo beside it that stopped Elena's heart. Sophie and Luna. At Christmas. Just 2 months before the disappearance. The little girl's arms wrapped around the dog's neck. Her face buried in Luna's fur. The caption. Sophie and her guardian angel, Luna. Christmas 2020. Elena drove to the town's only diner, closed, but with Patricia Wilson, the owner, living upstairs. Patricia had run the place for 30 years, knew everyone's business. She answered the door wrapped in 3 blankets, her breath visible in the cold. "Elena, what are you doing out in this?" "I need to know about Mark Sullivan," before Sophie disappeared. Patricia's face changed, softened with the particular sadness reserved for tragedies that broke good people. "Oh, honey, why are you digging into that pain?" "I have Luna. There's something not right about all this." Patricia made instant coffee on her camping stove, the power having been out for days. "Mark was different before. You wouldn't recognize him. Best father you ever saw. Him and Sophie. They were a team after her mother passed. Cancer. When Sophie was 3. Mark didn't date, didn't drink. Nothing. Just work and Sophie. He built her a playhouse that was nicer than most real houses. Taught her to use tools to build things. They got Luna when Sophie turned 4. For protection, he said. But really, because Sophie begged for a dog for 2 years straight. What happened after? What happens to any parent who loses a child? He broke. But Mark broke mean. Started drinking the day they called off the search. Lost his job within a month. Started blaming Luna. Said she was supposed to protect Sophie. That's why they got a German Shepherd. The abuse started small. Yelling. Throwing things. Then it got worse and nobody stopped him. Patricia looked away. We tried. Sheriff went out there a couple times. But Mark's smart. Even drunk. Never left marks where they'd show at first. And that dog. She never fought back. Never bit him. Never ran away. Like she was doing penance for something. those scars on her back. 7 of them. One for each year of Sophie's life. He did it on Sophie's birthday each year, like some sick ritual. Said it was to remind Luna what she took from him. Patricia wiped her eyes. We all knew. The whole town knew, and we did nothing. Because what do? Take the dog? Where would she go? And Mark, somewhere in that drunk mean shell, is the man who used to give Sophie piggyback rides down Main Street. Elena found the Higgins house next. Bob and Betty Higgins. Though Bob barely spoke anymore after his stroke, Betty welcomed her in. Their house warmed by a wood-burning stove. I figured you'd come asking, Betty said, settling into her recliner. You want to know what I know about that night? You were there. I was here. Same as always. But I see things from this window. That night, the storm came fast. Mark had been drinking, not falling down drunk like now, but enough. He sent Sophie out to play with Luna, said they'd be fine for a few minutes. Kids and dogs love snow, right? But he fell asleep on the couch. Betty paused, staring at something beyond the window, beyond the present storm. I heard Luna barking, not normal barking, the kind that means something's wrong. Went on for maybe 20 minutes. Then it stopped. About an hour later, I see Luna at Mark's door, pawing, barking again. Mark finally comes out, realizes Sophie's not with her. That's when the panic started. But you said there was more. Something about the search area. Betty's eyes sharpened. Luna kept trying to lead them north toward the woods, but Mark found Sophie's backpack by the river and fixated on that. Wouldn't consider anywhere else. When Luna tried to pull the searchers north on day 2, Mark hit her hard with a stick, in front of everyone. Said she was confused, traumatized. The searchers followed Mark's lead. He was the father after all. They searched the river for 3 days. Never went north. Why didn't you say something? I did. Sheriff told me dogs get confused in trauma. Mark told everyone Luna had failed, had let Sophie wander to the river. Who listens to an old woman over a grieving father? Elena was about to leave when Betty grabbed her arm. There's one more thing. The morning after, before the search really started, I saw tracks in the snow, adult boots, not from town, not from leading north. They were covered by afternoon snowfall, but I saw them. Someone else was out there. Travelers, maybe. We get them sometimes. People passing through, especially ones who don't want to be found. They camp in the northern woods. But in that storm, Betty shrugged. I told the sheriff. He said it was probably hunters from before the storm. But hunters don't walk in single file. And they don't walk that purposeful. Back at the clinic, Elena found something she'd overlooked. An old SD card in the bottom of the backpack, wrapped in plastic. Her laptop still had battery. And when she inserted the card, 43 video files appeared, all dated between 2019 and February 2021. The first video was Luna as a puppy, 8 weeks old, tumbling over Sophie's lap. Sophie couldn't have been more than 5, missing her front teeth, giggling as Luna licked her face. This is my guardian angel, Sophie announced to the camera. Daddy says she'll always protect me. Elena watched them all, a chronicle of unconditional love. Luna growing from clumsy puppy to elegant adolescent. Sophie teaching her tricks, reading to her, using her as a pillow during movie nights. Mark's voice occasionally from behind the camera. Warm, loving, whole. One video from January 2021 made Elena pause. Sophie, now 7, was brushing Luna's fur. You know what, Luna? If something ever happens, if I get lost or scared, you have to find me, okay? Promise? Even if everyone else gives up, you won't give up, right? Luna had placed her paw on Sophie's hand, as if sealing the deal. Sophie hugged her tight. I love you more than all the stars. The last video was February 13th, 2021, the day before. Sophie was showing Luna how to carry her backpack. See? You're so strong. You could carry my whole life in there. She'd packed it with her treasures. The doll, her scarf, a drawing for Luna. This is important stuff. Luna, keep it safe. Elena was crying now, alone in her office while the storm raged outside. She understood what she was watching. The last moments of a perfect friendship before the world broke it apart. She moved to the recovery room where Luna was awake, watching her with those amber eyes that held too much history. Elena sat on the floor beside the cage, laptop balanced on her knees. You want to see her? She asked softly. She turned the screen toward Luna and played a video of Sophie singing. Luna's entire body changed. Her ears perked forward. Her tail attempted a wag despite her condition, and from her throat came a sound Elena had never heard. Part whine, part cry, wholly desperate. I know, Elena whispered. I know you tried. I know you never gave up. She found herself talking then, words she'd never said aloud. I lost my son, too. Leo. He was 8. Drunk driver. 3 days before Christmas, 5 years ago. I understand the promise, Luna. The weight of failing to protect them. But you didn't fail. You tried to tell them where she was. Luna pushed the backpack toward the cage door again. More insistent this time. Elena noticed something new. Faint marks on the bottom of the bag. Like it had been dragged across rough ground repeatedly. Like Luna had been carrying it somewhere over and over, trying to show someone something. You've been trying to take this somewhere, haven't you? For 3 years. You've been trying. The storm outside was getting worse. The radio running on batteries. Reported 23 dead across the state now. The National Guard was mobilizing. But roads wouldn't be clear for a week at minimum. Elena's generator coughed, sputtered, died. The backup battery system kicked in. 8 hours of power. Maybe 12 if she was careful. She made a decision, moving her cot into the recovery room. She set up camp beside Luna's cage. If these puppies came during the storm, she'd need to be right there. No power meant no incubator, no heating pads. She'd have to keep them warm the old-fashioned way. Luna watched her arrange the space, and for the first time since Elena had found her, she saw the dog's body relax slightly. Not trust exactly, but recognition. This human understood promises. This human wouldn't give up. Elena pulled out the photograph from the backpack again, studying it under her flashlight. Water damage had destroyed most of it, but she could make out partial images. Sophie's smile, Luna's fur, and in the background, barely visible, what looked like trees, northern trees, the direction Luna had tried to lead the searchers. What happened in those woods? Luna, what did you see? Luna's response was to curl tighter around the backpack, her body trembling with more than cold. Her puppies were coming soon. Elena could see the signs. The nesting behavior was intensifying, her breathing changing, her focus turning inward. But even as her body prepared for birth, Luna's eyes remained fixed on that purple backpack, on the promise she'd carried for 3 years through abuse and abandonment, through 7 scars and countless beatings. She'd never let go, never given up, never stopped trying to fulfill a 7-year-old's request to keep her safe. Elena reached through the cage bars, gently touching Luna's head. When this storm passes, when you're strong enough, we're going to those woods. We're going to find out what you've been trying to tell everyone. I promise. Luna looked at her then, really looked at her. And in those amber depths, Elena saw what 3 years of failure hadn't killed. Hope. Desperate. Weary. But undimmed hope that someone would finally listen. Finally understand. finally help her keep her promise to Sophie. The storm howled its fury against the clinic walls, the temperature dropping further, ice building on every surface. Montana was dying under winter's assault. But in this small, warm space, life was preparing to emerge. Luna's puppies would be born into a world of ice and darkness, but also into a world where promises still mattered, where love endured beyond reason, where a dog's loyalty could survive even the complete destruction of everything else. Elena settled in for the long watch, knowing that when the storm broke, when the puppies came, when the truth finally emerged, everything would change. Some transformations came sudden like storms, but others, the most profound ones, came from promises kept in darkness, waiting for someone to finally bring them to light. February 14th arrived with a violence that made the previous days seem like mere rehearsal. The storm had become a monster. Winds hitting 70 miles per hour. Ice accumulating faster than nature ever intended. Elena had been awake for 36 hours straight, monitoring Luna, rationing the backup battery power, keeping the space warm with blankets and her own body heat. At 3:47 a.m., exactly 3 years to the hour from when Sophie had disappeared, Luna's water broke. It started wrong from the beginning. The fluid was tinged with blood. Not the normal amount, but enough to make Elena's veterinary instincts scream warnings. Luna's breathing became labored, panicked, her eyes rolling white with pain that went beyond normal labor. "Easy, girl. Easy," Elena whispered, her hands already examining. What she felt made her stomach drop. The first puppy was breached, stuck, and Luna was already hemorrhaging. The battery backup chose that moment to give its final warning beep. 3 minutes of power left. Elena grabbed her emergency flashlight, propping it between her shoulder and cheek as she worked. The shadows it cast made the room feel like a cave. Primitive. Dangerous. Luna's contractions were coming too fast. Too strong. Elena had to reposition the puppy manually, her hands steady despite the crisis. Luna screamed. There was no other word for the sound, and Elena felt the puppy shift. One more contraction, and suddenly there it was, sliding into Elena's hands. A male, not breathing. "Come on, come on!" Elena rubbed the puppy vigorously, clearing his airways, breathing into his tiny nostrils. Nothing. Nothing. Then a gasp, a tiny cry, and he was breathing, in the flashlight's beam. Elena saw something that made her freeze. On his forehead, clear as daylight, was a white marking shaped exactly like a star. Luna saw it too. Despite her pain, she reached for the puppy, licking him frantically. And then, for the first time since Elena had found her, she deliberately pushed the purple backpack toward Elena with her nose, not clutching it, not protecting it, offering it. "You want me to look now?" Luna's eyes met hers, and in them was something beyond pain, beyond animal. It was urgency mixed with trust, as if she knew something Elena needed to know right now. With the puppy safe against Luna's belly, Elena took the backpack. She'd examined it before, but in the dark, working by touch more than sight. Her fingers found something she'd missed, a hidden zipper along the inner lining. Inside was a plastic bag, and inside that, oh my God, it was a medical alert bracelet, child-sized, the kind that never came off. Sophie Sullivan, type O negative blood, severe allergy to penicillin, and at the bottom, a tracking number for the bracelet's registration. But there was more, a folded piece of paper, different from the child's note. This one was in adult handwriting, hurried, desperate. Found her in the snow, barely alive. Can't go to hospital. Have warrants. Taking her to North Dakota to my sister. She'll be safe. Tell no one. The dog wouldn't leave. Kept following. Had to drive fast to lose her. God forgive me. CM. Elena's hands shook. Sophie might be alive. Had been alive when taken. North Dakota. The dog had known. Had tried to follow. Had kept the evidence all this time. Another contraction ripped through Luna, bringing Elena back to the immediate crisis. The second puppy was coming, but Luna was bleeding too much, her body temperature dropping despite the warm room. Elena worked mechanically, delivering the second puppy. A female, healthy, crying immediately. Then a third. Another male. But Luna was fading, her breathing shallow, the blood pooling beneath her. That's when the clinic door exploded open, bringing a hurricane of snow, and Mark Sullivan. He stood there like a specter from a nightmare, ice in his beard, whiskey on his breath. But his eyes were stone cold, sober with grief. "It's her anniversary," he said, his voice broken. 3 years ago, right now, this minute. I was waking up to Luna barking. 3 years ago, I was realizing my baby was gone. He saw Luna, then saw the blood, the puppies, the struggle between life and death playing out on the clinic floor. Jesus Christ, what's happening? She's dying, Elena said bluntly, her hands working to stop the hemorrhage. She's losing too much blood. I need help or we're going to lose her and the rest of the puppies. Mark stood frozen for a moment. Then something shifted in his face. The drunk disappeared. The carpenter who'd once built things with his hands emerged. Tell me what to do. Hold this pressure here. Don't let go no matter what. Elena positioned his hands on Luna's abdomen. Press hard, harder than you think. Luna's eyes opened at Mark's touch, and Elena expected terror. Instead, she saw recognition, and incredibly, Luna's tail moved slightly. Not a wag, just an acknowledgement. Mark's composure cracked. I'm sorry, he whispered, tears freezing on his cheeks. God, I'm so sorry. I know you tried. I know you tried to show us where she was. I couldn't see past my pain. The fourth puppy came with a rush of blood that painted the floor crimson. Elena worked frantically, delivering the puppy while trying to stop the hemorrhage. The puppy, another female, wasn't breathing. Elena tried everything, but after 5 minutes, she had to accept the loss. Luna seemed to know, whimpering softly. There are more, Elena said, feeling Luna's contracting uterus. At least 3 more. But if she keeps bleeding like this, she'll make it, Mark said, with sudden conviction. She's never given up on anything. Not on Sophie. Not even on me. And God knows I gave her reason to, as if responding to his words. Luna's eyes focused. She looked at Mark, then at Elena, then at the backpack lying open beside them, the medical bracelet visible in the flashlight beam. Her message was clear. You know. Now you understand. The 5th puppy came easier, as if Luna's body had found some reserve of strength. Then the 6th, both healthy, both crying. But the 7th. It's stuck, Elena said, and she's too weak for me to. Luna made a sound deep in her chest. Not pain, but determination. She bore down with a force that shouldn't have been possible. And the last puppy, the smallest, a female, slid into the world. But Luna's effort cost her. Her heart rate plummeted. Her breathing became agonal. No, Mark said, his hand still pressing where Elena had shown him. No, you don't get to die now. Not when there's hope. That word hung in the air. Hope. Elena grabbed the medical bracelet, held it where Luna could see it. Sophie might be alive. Luna, you did it. You kept the proof. We can find her because of you. Luna's eyes tracked to the bracelet, then to her puppies, nursing against her belly despite the chaos. The one with the star on his forehead was strongest, already fighting his siblings for position. Luna watched him for a long moment. Then her gaze moved to Mark. What passed between them in that moment was 3 years of compressed emotion. Rage, grief, guilt, forgiveness. Mark sobbed openly, his hands gentle now where they'd once dealt pain. I'll find her. I swear to God, Luna. I'll find her, and I'll bring her home to you. Whether it was the promise or pure will, Luna's heart rate stabilized. Her breathing deepened. The bleeding, impossibly, slowed. Elena worked through the next hour in a blur of medical intervention. Suturing, cleaning, monitoring. Mark never moved, never let go, his hands steady and sure. When the immediate crisis passed, when all 7 living puppies were nursing and Luna was stable, Elena finally allowed herself to breathe. The storm still raged outside, but inside, in this small circle of light and life, something had shifted. Mark was staring at the medical bracelet, at the note with the initials CM. Carlos Mendez, he said suddenly. He worked construction with me, had family in North Dakota, had warrants for check fraud. Disappeared right after Sophie. His voice broke. He saved her, the son of A. Saved her and never told anyone. We need to contact North Dakota authorities, Elena said, with the tracking number from the bracelet, with DNA from her things, as soon as the storm breaks. Mark's voice was stronger now, purposeful. I'm going to find my daughter. Luna was watching them both, her eyes heavy, but alert. She'd done it, delivered her puppies, delivered her message, delivered hope from 3 years of darkness. The purple backpack lay beside her, no longer clutched desperately, but resting peacefully. Its purpose finally fulfilled. The star-marked puppy squeaked and wiggled closer to Luna's warmth. She licked him gently, and Elena could have sworn she saw something like peace in the dog's eyes. The promise had been kept. The truth had been revealed. And somewhere in North Dakota, a little girl who'd asked her dog to keep her safe was about to be found.